So I watch Harris, listen to what she says, and I think to myself, how stupid can somebody be? Doesn't the greatest nation on the face of the earth, with the greatest economic engine, that creates more wealth, more prosperity for more people than any other system or nation on the face of the earth, shouldn't we have candidates who recognize that? Shouldn't we have candidates who embrace capitalism rather than Marxism and socialism? Why would you reach to these old government police powers used by the most tyrannical regimes as a fix? And a fix to what? As a fix to what Harris and Biden have done. You know, I said I'm in amazement. I know 100 people that are smarter than her, that are wiser than her, that are more rational than her. And they're just people who work in regular jobs, our handyman, the manager, or assistant manager at our local bank, the waiters and waitresses at a couple of diners that I go to. They're just smarter than her. Because, as I said last evening, she's applying ideology to economics. It's ideological. It's not about economics. It's about trying to get votes. It's about trying to conceal what you've done. Now, let's go through this. And let's remember, Kamala Harris has no background whatsoever in economics. I don't mean she's not a professor. She's never built anything. She's never hired anybody in the private sector. She's never developed anything. She's never created anything. She's never met a payroll. None of it. All government all the time. So how is she an expert in this? Same with Joe Biden. Half a century. She's a quarter of a century. These people want you to believe they can run an entire economy. You know how complicated and complex our economy is? Let me just say this. I urge you strongly to watch Life, Liberty, and Levin Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern and Sunday at 10 p.m. Eastern. The Saturday program, we have great guests. Plus, I absolutely eviscerate this idea that Kamala Harris is anything but an Israel-hating, hardcore leftist. Sunday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, after the DNC convention coverage, I completely eviscerate her economic ideas and proposals in a way that I believe humiliates her. You really should watch these programs. They're very, very important. We have great guests. Great guests. But that said, let's just think this through for a second. She's talking about inflation, right? There's not a single company in America that's big enough or strong enough to create inflation. Not one. The American economy is too big for one company, or even a handful of companies, or even one industry, to create historic levels of inflation. Inflation is a monetary problem. In other words, you're literally printing too many dollars. You're inflating the supply of money. Politicians do that for several reasons. Number one, they can spend money beyond what's budgeted, beyond taxation. Number two, the consequences of what they do are very difficult to trace back. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, look what Kamala Harris is doing right now. Blaming businesses. That is, blaming Americans. Because businesses are not, like paintings you hang on the wall. Businesses are people. Many of you work for businesses. Many of you shop at businesses. Many of you benefit at businesses. So her answer is to punish you. Punish those of you who work for businesses. Punish those of you who shop at businesses. Punish you who own businesses. What do you think price controls are all about? It's a temporary fix, like a heroin addict. It's really cool for about 2 months. Then all of a sudden, where is everything? The shelves are empty. You have shortages. Now, politicians are never, ever going to blame themselves. Never, ever going to blame themselves. They're not going to do that. They're going to tell you how they're going to protect you and save you, because politicians are never wrong. And so I ask you a couple of questions when it comes to Kamala Harris and her, let's take a piece of this, price controls on food. What food? What level? You're going to control prices at the farming level? At the harvesting level? At the packaging level? At the end-use level? Where are you going to control it? And what impact will that have on farmers and ranchers and food packers and truckers and people who work at grocery stores? She has no idea. None. None. These are fortune cookie comments. You just throw them out there. And who exactly in the federal government is going to be in charge of this? Oh, the FTC. Who are they? What experience do they have? Absolutely none. Well, then who's going to do it? And how are they going to know when a price is too high or when it's high enough? Who's going to make that determination? And what are the consequences downstream? What will the impact be for the production of that product in the following days, weeks, and months? When you use your own hands and your own mind to create things, you know what you've put into it, the labor, the costs, and so forth and so on. When some bureaucrat sitting in an office in Washington, D.C., or some politician looking for votes, when they have a completely different knowledge base, they don't know what they're doing. So they destroy that market. They destroy the meat market. They destroy the wheat market. They destroy these markets because their decisions cannot be right. They're not based on knowledge. They're not based on experience. They're not based on anything other than ideology. And you will notice that those countries that use price controls, wage controls, and have in the past are typically totalitarian regimes. We've tried it once or twice, but they are typically totalitarian regimes because you need to control the population. You need to control the wants of the population. You need to control the desires. You need to make the decisions on who gets what. In other words, you have to distribute goods and services rather than the market and rather than people using their free will and voluntary decision making. It's a complete destruction of the engine of capitalism and replaces it with the iron fist of centralized government and ideological decisions. She's going to make sure that your food is priced right. How? What's in her background? Well, let's say she's Albert Einstein in a dress or a pantsuit. Albert Einstein would be the first to tell you it's an impossibility. It's an impossibility. Because in the end, ladies and gentlemen, you have to decide what you're willing to pay or not. Even based on distortions in the market. You go to the supermarket today. You have massive inflation. They're not pretending you don't, but you do. And it gathers 1 year to the next to the next. With these guys on TV who consider themselves business reporters, they do a month by month by month. You don't live that way. When you go in to buy butter or eggs or chicken or fish or meat or whatever you want to buy, there's an accumulation cost over the last 4 years. When you go to the pump to fill up your car, There's an accumulation cost and an accumulation of inflation, of market distortion. So the government that distorted the market in the first place is now going to fix it? It wouldn't have to fix it if it didn't distort it in the first place. This is Marxist, class warfare, populism. That's what it is. Now let's talk again more specifically. Products and services. When she and her government henchmen decide to punish certain industries, and by the way, you know those industries are going to have lobbyists, and they will go to Washington, and they will go to the Democrat Party, and they will go to the Harris campaign, God forbid if she's elected and runs for re-election, God forbid. And they will, what do you want from us? You want any donations? There's a whole underground politics plus economy that takes place. Decision-making is not in the market. Decision-making is made in the halls of power. And you suffer from it. But back to the point, products and services that are targeted. And then, through a dictate, are said to be gouging, or as she called it, gauging, right, Mr. Producer? She calls it gauging. She doesn't even know what the hell she's talking about. Gouging the consumer. Of course, the federal government is endlessly gouging the consumer, but who cares, right? What happens? Those targeted products and services, those targeted businesses, it creates shortages and scarcities in those businesses, that is, the products and services. If you target potato growers, you're going to have less potatoes. If you target steel manufacturers, you're going to have less steel. If you target the price of automobiles, you're going to have less automobiles. Now, what about products and services that are subsidized? Like the housing market. Did you see the Home Builders Association? They were very excited. You mean you're going to give $25,000 in so many respects to first-time home buyers? They're wetting themselves. Because they're one of the industries that has been chosen to benefit by the government. And they think it's great. Because obviously their association doesn't believe in capitalism. But what will happen to you? That market will become heated. Even more inflation in the housing market. All of a sudden, you're going to have hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars flow into the construction of homes. Prices are going to go up and up and up, well beyond the $25,000 subsidy. Making, ultimately, ironically, the price of a house even more unaffordable. Even more unaffordable. And rather than a scarcity of houses, you'll have a scarcity of buyers. They have this in communist China right now. They kept building and building and building. But people's incomes, even in a controlled, regulated society, couldn't keep up. Couldn't keep up. This will help destroy the housing market in the end, but their housing association is too stupid to even understand it. And you are going to suffer through all of it. Economic dislocation, supply chains, more inflation, unpredictability, government, industry, working behind the scenes, making economic determinations, more and more power to Washington and the bureaucrats making ideological determinations. The greatest engine of economic production ever will be destroyed.